Jmath.
The last part of this chapter is devoted to sinking funds. Now, it's luckily not the most difficult part of the chapter, so don't worry about that. It's quite easy if you follow the recipe. But in some questions, they don't guide you, and you need to remember the order in which you're going to do these questions. So let's look at the steps. So, sinking fund, firstly, is about normally it's companies that have very expensive equipment or vehicles or something that is crucial to their business. So, they want to prepare to replace it in a few years. So, when that happens, they need to see, okay, what is the price I can get if I sell my old equipment? Let's just go with equipment for this example. So they want to sell their old equipment in a few years. So I need to get the book value or the scrap value. So I do that with the compound depreciation formula. Okay. Then I am at that stage, I'm going to buy a new one, but the world works with inflation. So a new one is going to cost more than it's costing today. So I need to use the compound formula to figure out what the new inflated price would be. So then after I have those two values, I subtract them. And for that step three, that is the amount that I would need to save up and prepare for to replace that piece of equipment at the time that I chose. So normally it's 5 years or 10 years. The question will make it very clear, but you need to figure out how much must I save by that date. And then step four is just to do the future value formula because it's savings, and I need to work out what X is normally in that question. So let's look at a question, at an example. Question one: due to load shedding, a restaurant buys a large generator for 250,000 Rand. It depreciates at 23%. Okay, so I'm just going to take a highlighter to just make my brain see what they are telling me. Okay, so it depreciates at 23%. And then a new generator is expected to cost 18% more. So that's inflation. And then the generator needs to be replaced in 5 years. Find the scrap value of the old generator. So if I look at my steps, to find the scrap value, I just use 1 equals P, 1 minus I to the power N. So with all of these values, my starting amount is the 250,000. I know my time frame is 5 years. I just need to choose the correct interest rate. So for step one, in this case, A is going to be equal to 250,000 1 minus 0.23. And now it's not compounded monthly or quarterly or anything like that. So I'm not dividing by anything and I'm not multiplying the months by anything. So I can just then type that in the calculator and see that this generator is only going to be worth 67669.60 Rand after 5 years. Okay, question two. What will a new generator cost in 5 years? And now I do the exact same formula, but with a plus and with the inflation interest rate. So for part two in this one, A would be equal to, again, 250,000, but now 1 plus 0.18. I'm not dividing by anything because it's annually and the time frame is still 5 years. So that answer would be 571,939.44. Okay, great. So now that I know what a new one would cost, and I'm going to sell my old one, so I don't need to save up that entire amount. So let's just do step three. How much do I need to save to replace this? I'm just going to take those two answers and subtract them. So I'm just going to say 571,939.44 minus 67669.6. And the answer to that question of how much must this company save up is 504,269.84. Now I can get to the last question. What amount will they need to save quarterly into a fund that gives 11.5% compounded quarterly if they want to have enough money to replace the generator? So I'm just going to go for the future value formula because it is savings. Just going to sub it in and work out what X is. According to my calculator, this company needs to save 19,006 Rand and 59 cents each quarter. And if they do that for 5 years, they will be able to replace their equipment. So that's sinking fund. In this question, they guided you nicely. They asked you the four questions separately. But I'll show you one now where you need to remember the order and the formulas and everything that goes with it because they ask everything in one big paragraph. Question two. So first they're going to tell us a story. John's Jams needs to replace their canning machine in 10 years' time. The current value is 300,000, but it depreciates at 17% on the reducing balance method. The price of a new machine is expected to increase at 12.5% per annum. If the old machine is sold at book value and the new machine is bought in 10 years, what must they save each month for this transaction if they open a savings account that yields 14% per annum compounded monthly? Wow, what a massive story. So I would first take my highlighters and just clear it up for myself. So firstly, I'm looking for the depreciation. So depreciates at 17%. That's going to be my step one. Then it's going to inflate at a different percentage. So expect it to increase at 12% per annum. It's not compounded in any monthly or quarterly. So I'm safe with that. And then the last one is my future value. So step 4 is going to use that interest rate. I know all of this happens for 10 years, and I also know that I'm starting with 300,000 Rand. So let's do the 4 steps for sinking fund and answer their question. So the first part, depreciation. Just going to stick to color so you guys can follow. So part 1 is the book value. So I'm just going to write book value equals, and then my p-value in this case would be 300,000 where I started, and then this is depreciating at 17% annually for 10 years. So sadly, that machine is almost worth nothing, but it is 46,548.12 if they're going to sell it. Now I need to work out what a new one would cost. So I'm just going to label this inflate, and it's going to look very much the same. It's still 300,000, but now it's 1 plus. Interest rate was 12.5%, also 10 years. So new one would cost 2,793,967. So you're just under 3 million in 10 years. But that's what inflation does, sadly. Now, for step 3 in sinking funds, I need to subtract those two answers to figure out what this company needs to save. So I'm just going to label this save. And if I subtract that, I see this company still needs to save 2,747,419.60. Okay, now I can get to step 4, which is what should X be for this company to be able to replace in 10 years' time. So they need to save close to 3 million Rand. Let's do the future value formula, sub in everything, and figure out what is X. So I could see the new interest rate was 14% compounded monthly. So I'm saying 14 divided by 12. Then they gave me 10 years, so I need to say 10 times 12. Sub in all of that, and then X would be equal to, in this case, 10,604 Rand and 98 cents. So if the company manages to save that up, they will be able to replace their machine. There we go. That's all the lessons on finance for the grade 12 chapter. I'm going to make a few videos where we will practice exam level questions and things that has been asked in past exams. So please feel free to look at these videos as many times as you need to. Write down all the formulas and steps, because finance, even though you get all the formulas, you need to know the right combination in order to answer the questions.
If this video helped you, please like and subscribe.
Jmath.